You know, with all these billionaires talking about going to Mars, what if we've already been there and we abandoned the planet? Welcome to Insomnia Rants, where we cover impossible topics that keep me up at night. Let's talk Mars.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
I recently had the Y-Files Mars video hit my feed, and if you guys haven't seen this video, definitely go check it out. But in it, he showcased something that I could try for myself, and you can too. If you take NASA-generated images that they've provided to the public, and you put them into Photoshop, and you remove the filter, if you don't know, there's a Photoshop trick, I use this for my thumbnails, where you can remove uniformly applied coloration. If the system can detect, it's applied all across the entire selected area. If you select the entire Mars image, you can see that NASA has systematically been applying filters to Mars images for years and years and years. Why would they be doing this? The point of this video is not to get into NASA. We'll probably cover another video covering all of the ways they've been caught red-handed, pun intended, through the years. But what I can tell you is that NASA might as well stand for never a straight answer. They doctor their images. They won't reveal full unedited videos and images to the public. They've been caught lying multiple times about where they're even taking the pictures. They've been caught taking pictures in Antarctica and posing it as Mars. There are literally aliens in NASA transcripts. And here in America, I don't know about you guys, but the rest of my younger American audience, I was never taught any of this in school. This was all systematically taught. Mars is a red planet devoid of life. That's all you need to know about it. No, we can't live there. Let's just go on to the next topic. What I never remembered getting taught, maybe my teachers tried and I was just a little bit of a class clown, I don't know, but today's Mars versus then is very, very different. In 2025, Mars is known to be the big red planet. It's radioactive, barren, and allegedly devoid of all life. Don't make me go get the tinfoil hat. Mars was also formed about 4.6 billion years ago with a B, and this is 100 million, some estimate 60, but anywhere from 60 to 100 million years before the Earth was ever created. Mars had a temperature of what's estimated to be 78 degrees Fahrenheit. It was covered in waters and lake, and it had a robust atmosphere to protect it from those radiation and solar rays that today the planet just gets bombarded by. In many ways, Mars sounds like Earth 1.0. Literally had the perfect temperatures and conditions for humans to live on. This begs the question that has been plaguing most of what modern NASA has been trying to answer. Did life exist on Mars, and do we have concrete evidence? There are 3 discoveries that NASA has made that, to me, indicate that yes, life did exist. The first actually happened less than a week ago. Less than a week ago, the Mars rover discovered what they believe to be signia, or the outline or the fossilization of what appears to be coral. Like I mentioned, Mars was covered in water, so the presence of coral suggests that, yes, advanced, even if it was bacterial, but there were life forms on Mars. The second thing is they discovered actually what they're calling the Mars flower a few years back. There's a lot of things that through time NASA has said, oh, your eyes are tricking you. This is one of those things that I don't think they can say our eyes are tricking us. And then the third thing is they supposedly discovered a rock that has evidence of bacteria on it, again suggesting that life did exist on Mars. To me, since we've got 3 out of 3 here, I'm not willing to not believe that there was no life on Mars. It's, to me, more likely now that there was life on Mars than there wasn't. So if yes, if there was life on Mars, did it develop into an ancient civilization? This is where we're entering the territory of speculation, because I have not been to the red planet, and frankly, neither has anybody else, allegedly, but there are mountains of evidence to suggest that yes, perhaps there was an advanced civilization on Mars. You guys might remember this one. This is a Mars door that got very popular on the internet a few years ago. You know, NASA has written this one off as essentially an optical illusion. It could form by natural erosion. I understand that. And I also think with a different perspective from the camera angle, it might look different. That being said, one of the most common things that has written this off is this thing is only 3 feet high. I don't know if you guys have read any alien myths, but they're all short. So to me, the 3 feet high thing doesn't rule this out, but I'm also willing to believe this is just an optical illusion. Now, you might have seen this one too. This is another really famous image where people say supposedly there's a lot of right angles going going on in this image, and this is what could be a foundation or irrigation pipeworks or something. This one's kind of been debunked in the sense that I don't really think, this could be natural or tricks of the light. This one to me was never really convincing. There's a pretty good post. If you go to Metabunk and just Google the title of this article, claim there's a feature on Mars that resembles an ancient square structure, you can look it up. But he essentially debunks it, and I can't help but agree that, yes, straight lines do form in nature all the time, and I don't think that it's impossible that this is just literally a natural formation. However, there are many people out there that point to this picture as being an example of alien life. Check this out. I always loved the idea of dragons actually existing, but supposedly they found this extremely strange period or segment of rocks that have these spikes coming out of it. It looks like a giant snake, sandworm, dragon. It's really, really bizarre. All I know is that when I look at this, I don't think it's natural. Again, I'm not a scientist, but the pictures are just starting to pile on here. I mentioned it at the front, but the Y-Files covered the Cydonia region of Mars in one of his videos, and one of the most famous images to ever come out of this region was the face image. Now, so the story goes, you guys can go, again, I think the Y-Files job does a better case, but essentially we got this picture, NASA goes back, takes another picture, it looks nothing like it, and then they just tell us it's all of a trick of our eyes. That being said, I happen to work in Photoshop. Let's take a look at this. If you take a look at the face on the left, you can follow these black dots along the top left. This is very, very easy to tell that the structure is elevated at the surface and or it has an oval structure. If we take a look at the post-NASA image, it is rigid right lines. And again, I can tell you, I've done my fair share of covering things up in Photoshop. This is not natural. Or I guess it is natural if they messed with it in Photoshop to make it unnatural of a natural picture. There's also what many believe to be a five-sided pyramid to the west of this face on Mars, suggesting that this may have actually been a town. And if you zoom out a little bit, you'll see there are all sorts of rocks and structures around. You'll also see in the same picture what many describe as two massive, massive craters. These craters could have been nuclear bombs, asteroids, we don't really know, but there are huge craters surrounding the city, suggesting that maybe this would have been a destroyed city. Now, before we move on, I do want to mention the pyramid, the five-sided pyramid. It's known as the D&M pyramid in the Cydonia region of Mars. There have been two independent studies. One person believes that perhaps the mathematical relationships determined to draw the conclusion that it was a pyramid. Somebody has essentially said that there's a lot of convenient angles going on and we essentially cannot draw the conclusion that it's a pyramid. That being said, there's a second study found that the margin of error, the mean error, is 0.36 and the standard deviation of error is also 0.36 in the mathematical relationships of the sides. Both of these studies obviously have contradicting information, and the original claim is that the pyramid is mathematically correct to exist on Mars, so again, come to your own conclusions on that pyramid. If we keep going down this rabbit hole, again, there's either life or there isn't. If there was an ancient civilization, what happened to them? The modern theory is essentially the Mars core, because it's a lot smaller than Earth, it destabilized, it stopped spinning, which eventually caused the breakdown of the atmosphere. Mars becomes inhabitable. The entire planet gets bombarded by solar rays. The planet goes into earthquakes and freezing temperatures. Everything dies, and it is completely devoid of life. That is called the modern model of history, at least according to Mars. John Brandenburg, though, who worked at NASA for 10 years, does not buy this theory. Back in the 90s, Mr. John Brandenburg released a very popular theory, and he essentially led the operations on Mars for 10 years. John Brandenburg argues that this is not what happened. Mars is covered by uranium and thorium, and not just a little, not just a lot, abnormally amount of thorium and uranium. And also, according to John Brandenburg, there is enough of this type of thorium and uranium in conjunction with isotopes that are only formed by nuclear fission. Again, we've done all these tests with nuclear bombs, Hiroshima, XYZ. There is an isotope that is only formed as a result of nuclear fission. And John Brandenburg argues that Mars is covered by this isotope, suggesting that a nuclear bomb or reaction or fission 50,000 times larger than the bombs dropped at Hiroshima at some point went off on the surface of Mars. This would have absolutely caused the atmosphere to destabilize. The planet would have started crumbling. Civilization would have been falling apart. This could have happened as a result of war, so it's been theorized that the asteroid belt is perhaps a destroyed planet. It's also been theorized that maybe this civilization worked off of nuclear reactors, and then something just went terribly wrong with their technology, and it caused a chain reaction on the planet. Either way, though, there's enough uranium and thorium that is also in a distinct composition difference, atomic composition difference, with the meteors that we see from Mars, that it makes no sense. And I would encourage you guys to go do your own research on this if you want to deep dive that topic further. The other modern theories that I think are plausible is, what if the planet did just naturally start falling apart? What if they ran out of time? It's, the modern science community, what they say is essentially Mars is 25% smaller than Earth, so had a whole lot less time to keep its atmosphere afloat. It could have just naturally fell apart and they had to abandon the planet. The other thing that is totally possible, if you don't know, all the time the sun is releasing these bursts of energy, and one of these type of energies is called the coronal events. These events are essentially where the sun has a black spot and it just spits out energy in towards a certain direction. It has also been prophesied, fun fact, in the Bible, that when so-called Jesus comes back, the sun is going to turn dark, XYZ. Out on Mars, it's possible that the sun just released one of these super coronal events and it blasted through the atmosphere and completely destroyed the planet. And again, these solar radiation events, even as humans, we don't really have answer for. If one of these things hits Earth, we're kind of cooked, literally. Jumping back to this fun story we're going down, their planet was falling apart. There was an ancient civilization, and I've always argued, look how fast humans have evolved in the last 12,000 years. According to the modern model of history, human civilization started about 12,000 years ago, although the first humans recorded were 300,000 years old, right? It's kind of astonishing what we've done in the last 12,000 years. We've put a man on the moon. We've got active robots on other planets scanning for information. We have underwater technology that can go to the bottom of the ocean. We are building skyscrapers. We are literally so far advanced for just 12,000 years. Imagine if we go another 12,000, another 12,000, another 12,000. Keep in mind, again, Mars was formed 100 million years before Earth. Million. That is a long time for a so-called advanced society, advanced species, civilization, whatever you want to call it. If they're just allowed to evolve, imagine what that civilization could do. But their planet is dying. Where would you turn if you were in one of these ancient civilizations? Would you jump millions of light years away if you could even do that? Or would you just go to the closest planet near you and start setting up shop there? A lot of people know this, but some don't, that the moon is the entire key to the Earth being stable. If the Earth did not have a moon, Earth would wobble like a ball. There would be earthquakes, nonstop floods. There is no way life could be supported. The moon is literally the key to stabilizing the planet. And what if I were to tell you the moon makes no sense? We will absolutely be doing a different video on this at some point, but let me know if you want me to prioritize that. I don't know when I'll get to it. But the moon is weird, and that's really all you need to know for this video. So number one, if you've never looked up, the seismographs of when NASA landed the rovers on the moon, they landed two things on the moon. In both times, the phrase rung like a bell is used to describe how the moon rang. When objects land on Earth, they usually only last for a minute to 2 minutes. On the moon, when something lands on the moon, you can see the seismographs on the center of the moon for hours. And what this suggests is that the moon is full of caves or hollow. In addition, if you look at the craters on the moon, this is just something that scientists have been debating for years and years and years. All of the craters on the moon appear to have uniform depth, meaning no matter the size of the asteroid, they seem to all be the same depth. You would think the bigger asteroids would penetrate deeper into the surface like every other planet and or moon that we know. This is not how our moon works. In addition, NASA has discovered that there are caves on the inside of the moon at 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Did I mention earlier in the video that the original temperature of Mars was 78 degrees Fahrenheit? Great. There is also, if you guys don't know, back in the day, Apollo 11, when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin went up to the moon, there was a third person on the mission that went over to the dark side of the moon. When he went over to the dark side of the moon, NASA cut off the official lines of communication. but ham operators were still able to listen in. If you don't know, you can actually use a ham radio and listen in to even the International Space Station. This works even in 2025, and back in the day when the Apollo missions were going on, a lot of these folks ended up listening into these Apollo missions with their ham radios because they didn't have access around the world to television or what have you. And some of them recorded what those astronauts said.
No, there's not enough phones. No one's gonna believe this. Whistle. I say that there were other spaceships. They're lined up to the other side of the crater. There they are, and they're watching us.
If that all wasn't weird enough, the moon is a near-perfect sphere. It bulges at the center because of gravity. In a near-perfect ellipse orbit, it's an ellipse, it's not a perfect sphere, but it never gets closer to the Earth. Why is that? In addition, when there's an eclipse, the moon is the perfect size to completely block out the sun. It's really strange. It's a perfect sphere in a near-perfect orbit at the perfect size to perfectly block out the sun. In addition, the moon does not work like how it does on Earth when it comes to the age versus depth of soil. Here on Earth, the farther you deep, the older rocks get theoretically. On the moon, the farther you deep, the younger rocks get. What? This suggests that what we see on the surface of the moon is actually being pulsed out from the center. And then finally, I would encourage most of you guys to go look up NASA transcripts. You can go to Reddit or any of these things. There is literally an official NASA transcripts. Astronauts referring to things as Santa Claus, spacecraft, living inside mushroom holes, living inside craters. NASA literally has these things inside their transcript. So here's the theory, and this is the fun part. Again, this is all speculation because clearly I've been to Mars, clearly I constructed the moon, and clearly I know everything about the universe. Mars was dying and an ancient civilization exists there, so they came over to the Earth and established the moon. Again, like we've talked about, without the moon, the Earth could not be habitable. By constructing the moon, they were able to stabilize the Earth's climate. Great. Now they got to figure out the second part of their equation is how do we repopulate this planet and or do it in such a way that our civilization is not going to just repeat itself and blow our own planet up. What we are today is not necessarily, an independent race. We are their babies, their experiments, they're hybrids, or they're prisoners. They don't want to let us get to the intergalactic scale because we're going to blow each other up, maybe like they once did with nuclear fallout. Or maybe our technology is going to get so advanced that we are going to damage ourselves. Either way, though, I think what they're trying to do is create either a simulation to test our human brains to see which one of us are good and bad, or they're just here to make sure that human life can evolve and grow. And every time we start getting to these points in society and history where we are destroying the planet and or ruining things, I truly think that what's going to happen is they're going to reset civilization. If the moon is the key to stabilizing Earth, and let's say it was built somehow by a crazy ancient civilization, if they put it there, they can move it away. And you know what happens if you move the moon away for even 24 hours? You wouldn't even have history of what we were. Right now, we're spinning at about 1,000 miles per hour. If the moon moves away, we would literally get flung at 1,000 miles per hour. We would die immediately. The planet itself would collapse. There would be earthquakes, tidal waves, continents would sink to the ocean floors would rise to the surface. Think about it. What would survive? Buildings wouldn't survive. Internet wouldn't survive. Phones wouldn't survive. Nothing would survive. Even our human bones would get crushed into dust and wash away. And when you look at the Earth's carbon dioxide footprint over the last 800 million years, you can see very clear peaks and troughs in where carbon dioxide, which if you don't know is what we breathe out and what's covered on the surface of Mars, it happens to be the key to telling how many humans are alive. Right now, we're at an all-time high. I hate to break it to you. We are blowing through the carbon cycle's previous historical highs, and frankly, it's kind of scary. If the moon is up there, and if we've got some sort of simulation going on where they're trying to keep the planet alive, it suggests that why the moon perfectly blocks out the sun is it would prevent a coronal event from hitting our atmosphere. If the moon needed to, it could just move in the way and block it. The other thing is they can easily reset human civilization anytime they need to, move back and just repopulate the Earth if they want. The other thing that is puzzled physicists for years and years and years is, where is the God particle? There is a supposed God particle that could exist that would allow us to literally construct reality as much as we want. It's been theorized about. It's never been discovered. There's some sort of fifth or sixth force of physics that we don't understand. And since we don't understand that, we can't control our reality. The other thing that's really coincidentally convenient, if there was an alien imposing restrictions on us, is the speed of light coefficient. The speed of light literally stops intergalactic travel and prevents so many new technologies from being developed. If the speed of light is somehow an artificial construct by these aliens, it would be a really convenient way to stop us from letting our technology get too advanced. Einstein also theorized about lasers, which came true, anti-gravity, and time travel, and supposedly anti-gravity is already inside the US military. All of these things are possible, and they suggest that an ancient civilization that is truly that sophisticated, they don't need a physical form. They literally have transcended time and space. They can materialize at one, and they can not be there if they don't want to be. They're just monitoring. And they don't necessarily need us or are intimidated by us. They're not harvesting us. We're probably just their babies, or their hybrids, or their experiments, or just their prisoners. Maybe they just want to see what we're doing to see if this version of humanity is going to be the one that dominates for the rest of time before they just reset us over and over. Either way, though, it's sure fun to talk about because I don't know. And obviously, these type of things are very, very scary to think about when you zoom out and you say, geez, what if those Mars civilizations were real? The other reality is, what if none of this is true and maybe we're just humans just to be humans and we die when everything is over? I don't know. What if religion is real? I don't know. We'll be covering all of these topics on this channel. As always, this was an impossible topic. I have not been to Mars, nor did I live 1,000 years ago, billions of years ago, 4.6 billion years ago when Mars was formed. I would encourage you all to come to your own conclusions. And until then, just remember, there can be multiple truths depending on your perspective. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is hopefully going to be the first of many, many videos on this channel where we are literally going to deep dive everything that keeps me up at night. Theology, religion, angels, demons, OceanGate, Mars, science, asteroids, discoveries, celebrity news, maybe if it's just relevant enough. But honestly, this is going to be more about those big topics that I find myself going down rabbit holes. And if you do too, feel free to join. I'll see you in the next one, and thank you for being here.